Hey everybody, welcome to Explicit Instruction. This session was presented at CEC 2019 by myself, Laura Clark, and Dusty Columbia Emberry, and I'm going to be sharing with you from Anita Archer's Explicit Instruction text, which you can see pictured there on the right. Our session today is sponsored by CEC's division DPHMD, which supports students with mild to moderate disabilities and moderate to severe disabilities, focusing on physical health and multiple disabilities. When we talk about DPHMD, we're looking at students who might have chronic medical conditions, complex medical diagnoses, physical and orthopedic impairments, or multiple disabilities. And we welcome all teachers, all families, and all professionals who work to support students. Please don't hesitate to contact us through the CEC DPHMD website. So let's start with the concept. What is explicit instruction? Explicit instruction has been defined by Ideas at Work as that systematic instructional approach that includes both delivery and design procedures, and has also been called direct instruction for those of us that grew up under that terminology. We know that for students with disabilities, explicit or direct or systematic instruction is that orderly instructional approach that makes learning accessible during the classroom activities rather than just through remediation or individual instruction outside of the classroom. If you're looking for more information through Teaching Exceptional Children, there's a picture of an article that was recently published using explicit and systematic instruction to support working memory. And we know that for many of our students with disabilities, working memory is a challenge. So explicit instruction has research behind it to prove that it supports helping students with that working memory challenge. There's over 40 years of research, and if you're looking for research, this is just a drop in the bucket. The Institutes of Education Science, or IES, have published many practice guides on their website. This presentation is being shared through the DPHMD website, and if you download the Google Slides that accompany that, there is a link for the IES practice handouts that you can get directly from the IES website. So overall, when we're thinking about explicit instruction, some of the key components include themes like this. How well you teach has a direct correlation or impact on how well students learn. The teacher's ability to teach content is crucial. We know that the big ideas for direct instruction or explicit instruction are focusing on students' learning and effective teaching practices. So let's dig into some of those effective teaching practices. One of them is to teach with passion, making sure that you're enthusiastic about the content you're teaching, but also managing with compassion. So an example I like to give here is with a lot of my students, they got very frustrated when it came time to demonstrate learning and would often shut down, rip up papers, get very upset. So I changed the narrative in my classroom to talk about how assessment was always showing me if I was teaching them the content. So if they missed an answer, it showed me that I needed to reteach that content in a way that they could access it. And that changed the narrative from it being all about them getting things wrong to them helping me be a better teacher, making sure that I was always looking for the best way to reach them and help them learn, making sure that compassion was always first and foremost in my mind. So when we talk about explicit instruction, we're going to dive deep into the specific ways and reasons we should use explicit instruction. And we use it most often when we're teaching facts, key vocabulary, or skills and strategies. A lot of times we get questions about other kinds of instruction. Why explicit instruction? Shouldn't we do project-based learning and inquiry-based learning? And I'm in no way saying that those aren't important strategies. What I am saying is that the research supports that explicit instruction is the best way to support student learning, especially for students with disabilities, in the acquisition of facts, vocabulary, skills, and strategies. After students have managed to acquire those skills, then we can dig deeper and broader into project-based and inquiry-based learning. But we always need to start with the foundation to make sure they have those key concepts down and that happens through explicit instruction. When we're going to teach facts, there's a really important four-step process we want to make sure we're being very explicit with students about. And we need to tell them, we want you to attend. So I always, eyes, hands over your eyes. This is Anita Archer's best way of teaching this. Attend, look and right, to intend, touching our brain, meaning we are intentionally paying attention to what's going on, to rehearse, right, and practice so that we can retrieve that information from our brains. So we're going to attend, to intend, to rehearse, to retrieve. And anytime I'm teaching facts with students, I go through that four-step process to make sure that students very intentionally understand that those are the expectations when we're learning facts. When we look at all that comes with explicit instruction, there are 16 key elements, and they're broken down here into a color-coded system. So 3 steps focusing on content in the purple. Then there are 7 steps focusing on design, 5 on delivery of instruction, and 1 element that's specific to practice. So let's look at what all those pieces mean step by step. But keep in mind when you're thinking about why explicit or direct instruction, if you're a follower of Hattie's effect size research, a 0.4 indicates what we would expect a student to achieve over a year's worth of learning. Direct instruction shows an effect size of 0.6, so more than a year's worth of growth. And if you want to dive deeper into Hattie's effect sizes, if you'll download the PowerPoint and dive into that slide, it has a hyperlink to Hattie's research so you can look at those strategies that are most effective to support student learning. We know explicit instruction is powerful, and we know that there's a heavy lift that happens with instruction across the 4 main domains. So if we start with content, the first thing we must do is focus instruction on critical content, making sure that we're doing skills, strategies, vocabulary, the rules, things that help students understand the underlying foundations to everything that they're learning. In other words, we're going to cut the fluff and teach the stuff. Make sure students have access to the content. You need to always make sure we're sequencing skills logically. So starting with easier skills before we hit harder ones, making sure we're doing those high frequency skills. We're teaching the prerequisite first, and that we're keeping similar skills separated. So not teaching latitude and longitude at the same time, but rather separating those things out so that students have the best chance to acquire that knowledge. We always want to break down complex skills and strategies into those smaller instructional units to make sure that we're not giving kids that cognitive overload or going above their processing demands. We're always looking at what is a student's working memory, and am I providing those small bites and chunks so that they're able to access that content. One thing that I do often to ensure that students are getting those small chunks and bites, but also making sure that those prerequisite skills that they might have lost as we dive into new content, I use Google Docs and HyperDocs in order to link in content so that students can access the content. I often record content while I'm teaching in small chunks and then hyperlink those into the next lesson so that if a student's forgotten what the CH sound is from yesterday's lesson, today when we're working on the SH sound, they can go back and watch that CH video to make sure they've got that content solid. If we move to the next element and look at design, we're going to make sure that our lessons are not only designed to be organized, but that they're focused on specific skills. We want to make sure that the lesson always starts and ends with a clear statement of the learning goal. What are you expected to get out of today's lesson? And then ensure at the end, did you get that key fact or that key learning? We always want to review prior skills and make sure students have that. We can do that with retrieval practice, which is part of the explicit instruction system. We also want to provide those step-by-step demonstrations, not assuming that students have content knowledge, but that we're scaffolding it step by step. We're making sure our language is clear and concise. We're not using vague terms, and we're not cluttering our lesson with a lot of unnecessary language, but we're clear and concise. And we're giving them a wide range of examples and non-examples to ensure that the students have them. We're also ensuring the examples and non-examples we give are things that are in the students' current understanding and vocabulary. In my day, you got ice cubes out of the freezer in an ice cube tray. When I showed my students an ice cube tray, they thought I had pulled out a relic. They had no idea what we were going to do with it. They were like, is it a sorting tool? Right? Because ice cubes come out of an ice maker in their refrigerators. So my ice cube tray was not a good example for something that would hold a solid state of water. Examples have to be relevant. Non-examples have to be clear. We also want to provide guided and supported practice so that students have an opportunity to continue to evolve in their knowledge. We're also going to make sure that we solicit frequent responses from students, whether that's verbal, written, or an action response, and that we're monitoring those responses closely to ensure students are accurate. As we do that, we're also carefully watching and providing that immediate and affirmative feedback or corrective feedback if students have an incorrect answer. We're responding with the correct information. The last two delivery items are make sure you're using a brisk pace, keep it moving, and that you're helping students organize knowledge so that they can retrieve it later. If you want to look at some great practice, we've hyperlinked in some videos from Anita Archer's Explicit Instruction website. Highly encourage that you take time to view those. The last element in explicit instruction is practice. We want to provide that distributed and cumulative practice, which looks like spaced practice over time so that students can retain it long term. If it was important to teach in the first week of class, we want to provide that spaced practice so that they have it by the last class of the semester or the academic year. And that we're also giving that cumulative review. In addition to the 16 elements, when you talk about explicit instruction, we're teaching facts. We're going to use that 4-step process. We attend, to intend, to rehearse, and retrieve. And we're using the I do, we do, you do steps when we're teaching those skills or strategies. So I do, we do, you do always looks like me modeling in the I do phase, us having guided practice in the we do phase, and then you do is independent practice. But for students with disabilities, we need to ensure and remember that while for a general education class, one I do, one we do, and one you do might mean students understand that the CH sound says cha, but for students in that tier 2 of intervention, they might need a few I do's, a few more we do's before they get to the you do. And in tier 3, or for students with disabilities, notice that significant increase. Lots more I do's, lots more we do's, interspersed with a few more I do's, a lot more we do's before students work independently. Remember that you're going to have to balance that out with ensuring that students don't end up in that learned helplessness where they're becoming dependent on us to prompt them through each phase. So you want to make sure you get that nice sweet spot of giving them enough direct instruction, explicit instruction, so that they are able to master instruction and accurately be able to retain content over time. We hope that you've enjoyed this quick tour of explicit instruction for facts, skills, and strategies. If you'd like to know more, please check out Anita Archer's Explicit Instruction website and let us know on the DPHMD website so that we can provide you with deeper knowledge if that would help you in your teaching. Happy teaching and happy learning, and thanks for watching with us.